Okay, we're back. The painting is now dry, and as you can see, they always dry a shade lighter, so you can see how it's lightened up. We've got a little bit of bleed just here, but I'm not overly concerned about that. We can work around that a bit later on in the painting. So the light's coming from this direction, and all the dark is going to be on this back side here. So we've got a nice reflection here. We might need to lift a highlight out here because we lost it because it was drying so fast. So we've painted now basically the main tones of this painting. I've left the sky very plain because I wanted it to appear like a nice calm evening scene. So the light, you know, it's quite a dark painting, but it is a really nice way of painting. I enjoy this so much. Okay, we're going to start now by painting these distant hills, and we're just going to use a little touch of sepia, but mainly indigo blue. In a landscape, the furthest plane away would always be a blue. So just carefully, we're just painting around this island, and we're just strengthening this mix as we come a little bit closer. And if you paint downhill like this, it gives the illusion of distant hills. These are Staraplanina mountains. And we're just going to indicate some distant, there's a place called Nezibar down here, and Pomori, so we're just going to put a hint of a, although whether or not the blocks of flats would have been built when the windmill was, maybe I didn't think this one through. Anyway, it's done now. Can easily just do away with them. We just wiped out the whole civilization. Okay, that's the distant hills painted, and then we're going to mix this even stronger, and we're adding more brown to it this time. The colours get warmer as we come into the foreground, and we're just going to add some darks to the bottom here where the island would be. The islands are actually not connected, but they're very close to being connected. I think in days gone by they did used to be, but anyway. I'm just going to wet our brush, and we're just locally going to add, but I'm just careful to leave this highlight here. We're just going to indicate this island, and we're just going to add something to this ridge. It's a little bit weak, is that? Your paint that goes on should always be stronger than the paint that you're going on to, and if it doesn't, you end up with what they call a cauliflower, and we may end up with one just there, but I don't get fussed about things like that. Just going to indicate the shadow side of a couple of trees that are quite distinctive on this island, and there's a few trees just around this where the lighthouse is, so we're just going to indicate that. A bit more blue and brown, and there's some cliffs here. Just going to do that wet into wet. And the light's catching it from here. Just a little beach down here that you can kind of see. So I'm just going to lift out a highlight just there, just by wiping the brush and using capillary action just to lift out the paint, just locally there. Just adds a bit more interest. Okay, I'm happy with that island now. Just going to soften this edge. It's a little bit harsh just here, so just with a moist brush, just going to soften this. But I'm going to keep that one there. Quite like that one. Okay. Normally work from background to foreground. Just while we're here, we're going to locally wet this area, just using horizontal brush strokes and clean water. And I'm just going to drop in some really weak paint here to give me some reflections of the trees and the darks. So if there's a dark there, there would be a dark under there. Just a little bit of dark here where these, but don't be too exact with it. Then a little bit of wet on the brush and just drag it horizontally, and it softens all those reflections. Okay, just going to show you a little bit of the beauty of this technique. Most of it is not about adding paint to the paper, it's actually about lifting paint off. And if you've got a highlight like on the original painting, there's these on the postcard there's all these highlights here. We're going to simplify this roof because it's a little bit messy. We're going to tidy that up a bit. But we want some white railings against this sky, and the way to do that is to use a flat brush of any width, and just gently, we just added some water to this, and we're just gently working away at this background wash in a really delicate way. And you can see just here, I'll just see if I can zoom in on that for you. Yeah, you can see just here how it started to lift the paint off there, and that's exactly what we're after. This would be in sun, and we're going to take this highlight along here just so it catches the edge of that roof too. Very conscious about this lighthouse there, and I may move that in a minute because it's just got a bit of a lining up problem there because it's going to be hidden behind this. A couple of uprights. I'm going to put one right on the end of this roof, and there's a fence around here. There's the front edge of the main timbers here, and I'm careful just to drop that down below that island in the background. Just want to lift out some of this, and then I don't know what this thing is that's down here, but I think it's my suspicion is it's to move the lighthouse round to face into the wing, but it must have been a heck of a weight. But there's some timbers going across here on the original picture, and I presume they either fastened a horse to it or I've got all your best mates there to move it around. And we'll indicate some steps, some hand railings for some steps, and coming down here. And it's a lovely technique to use when you've painted really dark, because you get all that beautiful contrast between dark and light. We'll use a bit bigger brush now. Just going to zoom back out. And then, slightly awkward working around the tripod here, but I'll try not to knock it. Using a bigger flat brush now, and I'm just going to indicate these timbers. The finer you work this brush, so the technique is to take your tissue and just wipe the end, but also form it into a lovely flat chisel. And then you can make some very delicate lines using this technique. If you get your brush too wet, your lines go thick, so where these guidelines are, we need to work that really delicately. These are quite dark at the back of the windmill, but we may paint those in a really dark colour later because they are on the shadow side. We may just add another one just here. Yeah, that looks okay. That's nice. Just want to define this edge a bit more. So I'm just lifting off this. If you use a flat brush rather than a rigger, you'll end up with more convincing straight lines. So that's the windmill now. It's starting to take shape. So I'm just going to switch this off again, just to allow that to dry before I work on the next section.